Cleaning.
Oh, okay, there we go. It's being recorded.
All right.
We're recording. All right.
So yeah, Bill and I were up at Mohawk, and we were hanging with uh-oh. Is it back?
Brian, the crystal collector, and
Yeah, sorry. The screen went back to Jerry again. I think Jerry might be locked again. But
oh no,
yeah, we were hanging with Brian, the crystal collector. There we go. Cool. Uh, and I was walking along this out. I've now been dubbed by the owner of Mohawk Valley Mineral Mining and Alex the ground score king, because I found so many crystals this weekend.
That's
But
a nice
this is
crystal.
actually Druzy. This is Druzy crystal up here up top. There's actually Druzy in the side, in a vein here. It's hard to see. Um, let me try this here. There we go.
that's
But yeah,
gorgeous. Did you clean the mud off of the juicy crystals?
yeah. That's what I filmed. It's really hard to see, but there's this cave right in there of Druzy crystal, and then it goes in a vein all the way along the side of it. But those are crystals. It's got some contact and stuff because on the back it still has some dolostone, dolomite. We call that dolomite down here in New York. We call that dolostone. Um, yeah, there you go.
That's pretty cool. Ground score.
Yep,
That's a
ground score,
that's a great ground score.
ground score king. I guess I'm now that's my title up there.
Take the I correct me if I'm wrong, but dolomite, dolostone. I think the rule is a mineral and a rock cannot have the same name. So
Well,
the
the way
minerals,
we go,
yeah, the mineral's dolomite, but the rock is dolostone.
yeah. So the way we do it up there
Yeah,
is like all the bladed crystals. That's dolomite. That's what we
that's
refer to as
dolomite,
dolomite.
right?
And then the hard stone that we're breaking to get to the crystals. That's the dolostone. So
That's the dolostone, and that is. It's been a long time since I've been up in the Herkimer area, but that is some hard rock, man. I mean,
yeah,
Preaching to the choir there.
yeah, that is some tough
What's
rock
that,
to
man?
bust apart. Yeah, I think we're ready to start.
yep.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll do the. Let me screen share here, and we'll see how this works out. So let's do the introduction. I don't know if you see this full screen, do you?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
You can
It's
see
kind
it.
of like looking at your computer, I think.
Yeah, but you see the first slide, right? Zoom Rock Room, and
And it's all on the left.
oh, is it really?
Yeah, you probably need to start the slideshow if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. The problem. All right. Yeah. Let me try that. The problem is. Okay. Let me see if this will. How's that?
That's it. Yep.
Got it. Okay. The problem I sometimes find is when I go full screen with PowerPoint on Zoom, my machine sometimes locks up.
Let
So
go of my change, please.
what's that?
It's paper money.
Okay, so let's
Time, give me back my
I'm not
money.
even holding it that hard.
Yes, you were. You're gonna rip my money.
Everybody, please mute.
Yeah, we gotta find out who that is and mute them. I know I have a control here to mute everybody. There we go. I think I found a couple that were unmuted. Okay, so welcome to Tuesday Night Rock Room. I'm your guest host tonight, Steve Lindberg, from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. So Jerry has entrusted me with running the Rock Room tonight. So I will do my best. Hopefully everything will go smoothly. As usual, the Zoom Rock Room is sponsored by Lair Architecture in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Their motto is designing for the future. Send them an email at lairarchitecture@yahoo.com and send them an email to say hi and thank them for sponsoring the Rock Room. So let's see. Now I'm trying to move to, I just lost it. Did I lose everybody?
We still
Nope,
got
I'm
you.
here.
Can you, I just lost the,
I'm
We're
here.
here.
right, I have all of you, but I lost the Rock Room video. Let me try it again here. Let me open it. Can you see it now? Am I back?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, see, something's happening. When I go full screen, I cannot advance the slide.
It's okay. Leave it the way you had it. I mean, it was just a little border around the thing. It should be fine.
Well, I'm trying to advance it now and I can't. Oh, there we go. Now we got it. Okay, so couple of announcements. The winter solstice celebration is December 18th from 1:30 to 5 p.m. at Red Run Park. There's also a SOAR bird watching group on the first and third Saturdays of each month. The locations vary. It's free and everybody is welcome. The Institute's mailing address is in the bottom of the screen there in Waynesboro, PA. And you can also contact them at the phone number and at their homepage. So once again tonight, we have the Dirt Man's report will be coming to us, and we're looking forward to that. That'll be up next. So we want to welcome the Dirt Man again. Let's see, part of my screen is covered here by the little control bar. So we also want to, I think this is just an advertisement for the Crystal Collective, Mike Pinky and Krista Waterhall. They're on Gettysburg Road in the Lower Allen Shopping Center at Camp Hill, PA. And they're also located at Morning Sun Market in New York. So I believe that is a rock and mineral shop. Big mineral show coming up. I'm just checking out down here, looking at the calendar. That's this weekend. So this weekend, the Gem and Mineral Show is in Harrisburg, September 24th and 25th, Saturday 10 to 6 and Sunday 10 to 4. So admission is $5 a person, sponsored by the Central Pennsylvania Rock and Mineral Club. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make this one. It's another busy weekend, but think about attending the mineral show. So Jerry is going to be there. Our favorite online Zoom geologist. Jerry is like, I wonder if he ever has any free time. I don't think so. Jerry always seems to be doing something adventurous and exciting. He's either out in the field or at a mineral show. So on Saturday, Jerry has a full slate of presentations that he's going to make at the Harrisburg Mineral Show. Fun with minerals, fossils everywhere, make an earthquake and volcano, panning for gold and what to do with a rock. And then on Sunday, fun with minerals, repeated, make an earthquake and volcano, panning for gold and tracking a dinosaur. And if you attend one of his little seminars, you get a free prize for attending. So let's see, coming up in Rock Room, October 1st. No, that's not Rock Room. What is this? This is October 1st at 3 p.m. I think this is Jerry's, the Institute, October 1st at 3 p.m. Earthquakes and Volcanoes. 7:30, they have an astronomy viewing session at Sweet Arrow Lake in Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. That's free. And October 2nd at 7:30 p.m. also an astronomical viewing session at Codura State Park. The Smith Station road boat launch, and both of those activities are free. A lot going on this fall. Here's the Rock Room schedule coming up. On October 4th, we have, of course, we have Rock Room tonight, but on October 4th, there is no Rock Room. On October 18th, we have Herbert Hoover's Geological World in the National Mining Hall of Fame and Museum. And I believe the presenter will be Elizabeth Dinshall, the executive director. On November 1st, the Meadowcroft Rock Shelter with Jim Ullery. November 15th, ice. This sounds very, very interesting. I've never heard of this before, but November 15th, we have ice volcanoes in Pennsylvania with Adam Iano from the Pennsylvania Geological Survey. And then December 6th is the holiday geological quiz night. Those are always intriguing and challenging, and especially for those of us that don't have real fast typing skills, trying to get those answers up in the chat. So I believe that is our introduction. I'm going to stop the screen share here. And I think, Dirtman, do you want me to just bring up your, video and show it, or do you want to just take, you're a co-host, you just want to take over and?
Yeah, if you can play it from your end. I am still having some internet issues tonight.
Okay, let me,
I'll just say a couple things real quick.
all right,
This was actually a Lancaster Club kind of field trip kind of thing. Ken Frazier and I were there. Ken and his wife. We both went on this tour given by Chris Steffner, and so he actually was involved with the mine as a younger guy, and went down in the mine and all that. So this is the Peckway Silver Mine in Lancaster County. It was a fun day. We just very cool facts and stuff. So I filmed there. Update on Mohawk Valley Mineral Mining. I have been working there for a while now. Every other weekend, I'm pretty much up there. Bill Stevens, who has joined us tonight, has been up there with me. He's been mapping the place and doing some really good geology for us. He's become one of the family up there. So I was hoping he was going to pull his out to show off too, because he's hit a nice crystal, but I hit this one this past weekend. I was already showing it off for people that haven't seen it. That is a rare druzy patch on top of a big goonie, and then it's actually got a vein on this side of crystals and a little crystal cave there. I just filmed this, cleaning this about an hour ago. You can see behind me, I still have the cleaning vat and all kinds of stuff set up here. That video will be going up on Facebook on the Mohawk Valley Mineral page probably tomorrow. I'm supposed to start a TikTok account, so it'll probably go there as well. So anyway, that's all I really got. I just banged my goonie on the table. Without further ado, here's the Peckway Silver Mine, one of the richest silver deposits per ton of ore in the world, and it's not even mined. Without further ado, here you go, Steve. Thank you,
keep your fingers crossed, and let's see if this works. Can everyone see that?
Looking good.
All right, so let's
Click.
Checking out Dolostone.
Oh.
After learning about Dolostone pockets,
Here we go.
Dirtman here with another special report. Today, I'm at the Peckway Silver Mines in Lancaster County, checking out Dolostone. After learning about Dolostone pockets producing Herkimer diamonds in New York, I wanted to check out this Dolostone producing pockets of silver. This picturesque park is home to one of the highest concentrations of silver per ton of ore in the world. And while the mine is closed and collecting is prohibited, there's so much more to this park to discover, like hidden treasure. There's a website on the internet called Uncharted Lancaster, and they have treasure hunts all over Lancaster County. This happens to be part of one of them. I'm about to pull out the treasure chest for this location. Go to unchartedlancaster.com to start your adventure or side quest. and learn a lot about Lancaster history while you're there. This is the Uncharted Lancaster treasure chest. Let's see what's inside. That is the treasure. So I'm going to take one. I'm going to leave some Dirt Man's pay dirt stickers behind for the next person who discovers the treasure. I then joined expert Chris Hafner to tour and learn more about the silver mine. Main mine entrance goes in right here. Surface level mines goes back about 120 feet. Short way back on the left-hand side was shaft number one. Shaft number one was on an angle like that. You could actually go down trepidatiously, silver in the walls and quartz crystals. You go back a little bit further, the second shaft around the back went 10 stories down, about 110 feet straight down. I had flooded up in 1878. The worst of the month to drain the shafts out. And I went down there and down behind the second shaft, 100 feet down. Huge, massive spore strikes are still there. If they would drain it out today, you could see them today. The quartz and the limestone that existed were fractured by the colliding of the plates. And that's where the hydrothermal leachings that had the lead and the silver were thrust up in. And then immediately they were capped. You see all this, the clinosternophyllite is really dark blue, but you see all this black rock, this thick tapping rock. This is the rock right here that trapped the silver. It was thrust up, folded, and we ended up with it. And you see it down today. And it was the Native American tribes that lived here who first saw it over 300 years ago. We assumed that they were breaking the quartz here to make spear tips and arrowheads because we found some on the property dated to the right time period. So they were making the spear tips here for their own purposes. And this is one of those Indian pits, one of those Indian quarries. It's very small, but this is just one of them. You can see stacked rock here behind me. But you can also see this large outcropping. You can see quartz all through it. You can tell this is where they were at. Pretty cool. Be a 300-year-old Indian quarry. Nice. As a juxtaposition to the Indian quarries that we were just in, the small pits, this behind me is actually what a more modern operation would have done. Just ripped the entire hillside out and take what they want. Check it out for yourself by downloading maps, a geological tour guide, and more on the Peckway Township website or unchartedlancaster.com. With over 300 years of history, this is a great place to explore and learn about geology in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm Dirtman, and that's my special report, bringing the geology to you. From here at Peckway Silver Mine in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, back to you, Jerry.
So I know that was probably a little hard for everyone to watch. That'll be up on YouTube tomorrow. Sorry, I was not at work to be able to broadcast that from my studio tonight. But yes, it's a great park. I do not get into a lot of the things that are still there that you are not allowed to collect. So that's as far as I'm going on that. But it's a great, beautiful park. It's got a river running through it, tubing. It's a great park. So there you have it. Back to you, Steve.
And that was a fantastic video. I mean, it was a really nice, high quality. Everyone, I mean, the sound on my end was really, really superb. And it was clear. There was no skipping in it. It was like really, really nice. So I hope everyone saw that in as good of quality as I did. So yeah.
Tomorrow
Awesome.
on YouTube. Tomorrow on YouTube, it'll be
Good,
up. You'll be able to
good.
see it all you want.
All right. So any questions? Anyone have any questions or comments or before we proceed? And we will go to, let me see, back to screen share here. And
Thanks, Dirk, man.
there we go. Yeah, thank you. So
Thank you all.
go. Let me see what I have here. Why isn't my play button coming up on this? I wonder if that's my. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
I see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, is it filling the
Yes.
whole screen or
Good.
is that good?
looks good.
Okay, good. You know what this is? This is the this is my PDF and not the PowerPoint. I sometimes find the PDF is a little bit more stable. So tonight's main program on Zoom Rock Room is geological adventures to the Keweenaw Peninsula and back. This is something that I have been wanting to do for years. Sometimes it takes us a while to get around and see some of the geological locations in the States or elsewhere that we really want to get to. So this was kind of like a goal that I've had over the last, oh my goodness, 10 or 15 years. And it's really not that far. And I always have wanted to get to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and over to the Keweenaw Peninsula and see some of the famous banded iron formations and the famous copper mines in the Keweenaw. So my wife Meryl and I, we did this trip back between June 19th, June 21st to the 29th, just this past June. We from Johnstown to Copper Harbor, and I have, let me scroll up here a little bit so I can see that. I'm going to move the screen over a bit. I have another map coming up, but the state of Michigan, and it's also the Great Lakes. I have never seen, I've seen Lake Michigan. I've never seen Lake Huron. I've never been to Lake Superior. So it was a chance to see the rest of the Great Lakes. Of course, down here, Ohio and Pennsylvania border Lake Erie. So Michigan is kind of split into a lower and upper peninsula. The lower central part of Michigan includes Lansing, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Jackson, Traverse City. We also stopped at Petoskey to collect some Petoskey stone. That's right up here. I'll show you some of that. So you travel up through Michigan. You go past Detroit and Saginaw and Flint, and I believe it's Highway 75 is the main highway that comes all the way up through Michigan. And then you cross the Straits of Mackinac on the Mighty Mac, the Mackinac Bridge, and you come into the Upper Peninsula, which is kind of like the second half of Michigan. And then if you go just about as far north as you possibly can, you go across the Upper Peninsula and you go past Marquette and Ishpeming and the Iron Range. And then you get into the Keweenaw Peninsula, this little narrow finger that sticks up into the vastness of Lake Superior, and is famous for the enormous amount of native copper deposits that occur in the basalts. The only other place further north in the Keweenaw that you can go in Michigan is Isle Royal, which is out in the middle of Lake Superior. You really, I don't think we could see this from the shore of the Keweenaw. And then, of course, Michigan is surrounded by Illinois and Wisconsin. So I was more interested in the geology of the Keweenaw Peninsula than I was the surrounding states. I think that next time we make a trip, we went up and back the same way, and we might come back a different way. So here's from MapQuest, here's the route that we took. From here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania Turnpike, up past Pittsburgh, and then into Ohio on the Ohio Turnpike all the way to Toledo. And then at Toledo, Ohio, you turn north and you want to bypass around Detroit and avoid that traffic. So we bypassed around Detroit. You go past Flint, Michigan, the site of all the troubled contaminated lead pipes and water. And then you go through Saginaw. We stopped the first night and made a side trip to the famous Christmas town of Frankenmuth, Michigan. And Frankenmuth is right here. It's about halfway between Flint and Saginaw. So our first night, we stopped just north of Flint. We actually spent 2 days in Frankenmuth. And then our second day, we headed back north. And you cross the Mackinac Straits and the famous Mackinac Bridge, which is quite spectacular. If you are afraid of heights and narrow, windy bridges, well, you either want to drive across the Mackinac Bridge for a thrill, or you want to avoid it completely. It is quite a spectacular suspension bridge. I have some facts about that coming up. So after leaving Frankenmuth, then we crossed the Mackinac Bridge, and as soon as you get into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there's a small town of St. Ignace. We stayed in St. Ignace overnight, and then we continued across the Upper Peninsula and stayed in not Ishpeming. I've got that coming up in the next slide, and then from there to the UP, to the Upper Peninsula. So with that being said, the entire trip really couldn't be geology. So we made a side trip. We've been wanting to stop here for a while, so a little bit of vacation time here too. Frankenmuth is the famous German town, German city in central Michigan. Is the entire town is Christmas themed and German themed. The Bavarian Inn, all types of German foods and restaurants and gift shops, and all the people play the role. So a little bit of side geology here too. Central Michigan, the lower part of Michigan, is a geological structure that is what's known as the Michigan Basin. The Michigan Basin is it is a syncline, but it's 360 degrees. It is circular in shape. And so picture the Michigan Basin. This was an enormous depression back during the Precambrian and the Cambrian and up through the Paleozoic and into the Mesozoic era, that was inundated by inland seas and filled with an enormously thick layer of sediments, limestone, shales, sandstones, conglomerates. So pretty much the entire southern part of the state of Michigan is occupied by the Michigan Basin. And I have a geologic map coming up next in a cross section that will show you this. As you drive across the Michigan Basin, since this is a syncline, in a syncline, the older layers are exposed around the edge. And as you go towards the center, you go up section, you go up in stratigraphy. So the center of the basin actually contains some Mesozoic and Jurassic age sediments. And then once you leave the Michigan Basin, which is shown here in tan, dark brown, and green, then you cross up into the Upper Peninsula and you drop down. You cross a major fault in here and some contacts between the rocks. But once you get up into the Upper Peninsula, you cross the contact between Paleozoic sediments and you go down into the Mesoproterozoic. So this entire region, you cross back down into layers that are over 1 billion years old, an enormous difference in time. So here's a little bit of vacation slides before we get into the geology. Here's if you get off Highway 75 and you go into take the side road into Frankenmuth, this is the sign that welcomes you. And this kind of a quick view. This is the Bavarian Inn, an enormously large restaurant, and very much if you like German food, this is the place to go. And they serve family style. So you go in and they just, depending on the meal selection that you pick, you just go in and they just start filling the table with massive bowls of salads and fruits and then meats and vegetables and potatoes. So you have to be hungry to go into this place. Most of the restaurants in Frankenmuth specialized in this German fried chicken recipe. And of course you can get the Spätzle, the noodles and the red cabbage and all the other traditional German dishes. So the entire town is German themed. There's a lot to do there. The Cass River, C-A-S-S, the Cass River flows through central Michigan and flows right through Frankenmuth. There's a whole bunch of covered bridges there. It's a very, very quaint little town, lots of hotels. You can take a paddle wheeler, a riverboat trip for several miles on the Cass River. So there I am. My wife took that photograph. So it's about an hour and a half long trip. They take you up the river about 1.5 miles. They explain a little bit about the geology and the history of Michigan, how the settling and the colonial period of Michigan and the industry that's there. And the Frankenmuth area is a big producer of baked goods. And flour and wheat products that are distributed across the entire United States was one of the major industries there. So after 2 days in Frankenmuth, we were ready to continue north, but first, not without a stop at Bronner's. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Bronner's, but besides being the German town, I only have 2 pictures of this, but Bronner's bills itself as the world's largest Christmas store. And there's my wife, Marilyn, in her glory. We both love Christmas, but she really, really, really loves Christmas. And you walk inside Bronner's, and I'm going to say that this store is probably the size of 2 major Walmarts put together. And the entire store on the inside is themed. One section is all, if you want anything related to college sports, there's one entire wing that's college sports, then professional sports, and then relatives and ornaments. And it's just mind-boggling how much Christmas stuff is there. You can get lost in here. So after a 2-night stop in Frankenmuth and Bonner's Christmas, it was time to get back on the trail of geology. So here is, slide this over a little bit here so I can see it. So here's a generalized geological map of Michigan. The map that's on the right here has a stratigraphic column showing the geologic periods and the ages of the rocks that are found in different regions of Michigan. I've taken that and I cut it out and I enlarged it over here on the left for you. So central Michigan itself, the browns and the greens, this is the Michigan Basin. And if we look on the, so as we drive up, as we leave Detroit and we drive through central lower Michigan, you can see what's happening here. The light browns and the dark browns, you notice they have a circular pattern. And that is because all of the rock layers in the Michigan Basin, picture a set of stacking bowls, round Tupperware bowls that you stack one inside of each other. So as you stack the Tupperware bowls together, the oldest bowl on the bottom sticks out around the outer edge, and then you have the younger, smaller bowls in the center. So when you drive across a structural basin, you have the oldest rocks outcropping around the outer edge of the basin, and the younger rocks are exposed in the center. So what's happening here is you can see the browns and the light tans. We're at the upper Devonian to the lower Mississippian around 360 million years ago. Some of these formations we have present in, or some of these formations we have the equivalent of them present in Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. We have a Berea sandstone here, but we don't have the Berea shale, but Berea is the type location. So what you end up doing is when you travel across Michigan, you start with very old rocks in the Devonian, and you progress up into the Jurassic. So there are actually Jurassic beds here, and then you go back down old again. And then here are the Mackinac Straits and the Mackinac Bridge. And when you cross the Mackinac Bridge, here's the outer boundary. And notice this circular feature here. This continues down, but this circular feature, that is those are the older layers that are sticking out along the northern margin of the Michigan Basin. So when you cross the Straits of Mackinac and you enter the Upper Peninsula, you're going down even older in the geological timescale or the strat section. So you're going, these are the Silurian, and then the Ordovician, and then finally the purples. These are the Cambrian layers. So St. Ignace, the other Grand Marais, these other little towns here, the Great Sable Dunes are part of this Michigan Basin. And then as you drive west across the Upper Peninsula, you really drop down into the older stuff. So by the time you can see that the pinks and the greens here, we are down in the late Archean geological timescale. So we're going back, oh my goodness, 3.5 billion years, 2.5 billion years. So you cross over from the Cambrian to extremely older Precambrian rocks that date back to the time of Rodinia or older, and we'll see that coming up. By the time you get to the Keweenaw Peninsula, and here's the famous copper deposits, the Keweenaw Peninsula is entirely in the region that we call the Mid-Continent Rift, and that's late to middle Proterozoic, which is the eon before the Phanerozoic, in which the Cambrian and all these other geologic periods belong to. So in the Keweenaw Peninsula here, you can see that the rocks are kind of aligned in a long, narrow band. This middle band, that is the primary basaltic lava flows of the late Proterozoic, which right here, that would be, you could see that is the Portage Lake lavas. The Portage Lake lavas were extruded into a major rift that occurred in the North American continent over 1 billion years ago, and we'll look at that next. This rift system was the host to over 5 to 7 miles of basaltic lava flows that filled the rift, kind of like what's happening in East Africa today, where Africa is splitting apart. And this coincided with the Grenville orogeny that we'll look at next. So we go from the Michigan Basin up across into the Upper Peninsula. We cross Cambrian and Ordovician rocks, and then we go back into the Precambrian to rock layers that are over 1 billion years old. So here's a little closer look at the Michigan Basin. Here's the same map that I just had up before, but I kept the geologic strat section next to it. The Michigan Basin is actually part of a threefold basin that formed during early Paleozoic times on the North American Craton, the North American continent. Here is the Appalachian Basin. So the Appalachian Basin, same thing, contains rocks that are Cambrian all the way up to the Pennsylvania. Then we have the Illinois Basin, and then the Michigan Basin. So we have these 3 basins that merge into each other that formed during Paleozoic times. The cross section here is a cross section from northwest to southeast. So that would take us across the Michigan Basin. It's really not showing the Great Lakes on here. Of course, when we get this far north, we also have glacial till covering a lot of the rock exposures on the ground. So the glacial deposits are shown on top of the stratigraphic units here. But a cross section across the Michigan Basin shows this down warped circular syncline with the Cambrian rocks at the bottom, coming up through the Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Mississippi, and then finally it's capped in the very center with some Jurassic rocks. What lies deep underneath this? Well, deep underneath this is the Precambrian Craton, the actual original igneous and metamorphic rock that makes up the basement of our continent. How deep, how thick are these rocks in the Michigan Basin? Well, if we look at the scale here, from the surface, they go down about 14,000 feet. So we probably have close to 3 miles of sedimentary rocks that have accumulated in the Michigan Basin. Here is an early Devonian, Middle Devonian paleogeographic map that shows what the North American continent, at least in the Northeast here, would have looked like. So around 385 million years ago, here's the state of Pennsylvania. We have the Acadian Mountains coming up during the Devonian period. That's the Acadian orogeny. Back in the Ordovician was the Taconic orogeny. And then before that, we had the Grenville, which is when Rodinia formed. So after the breakup of Rodinia, then we had more continental terrains coming into us. So we have the Tacadian orogeny. The Acadian orogeny culminates in the Devonian. The ancient Acadian mountains are being pushed up. Here's the Appalachian Basin. And then we have a structural feature known as the Cincinnati Arch. It was a uplifting and anticlinal feature of rocks that separates the Illinois Basin from the Appalachian Basin. And then we have the Michigan Basin. So these were interior waterways. The Michigan Basin itself at one time, not so much today, but the Michigan Basin itself holds these rock layers, especially the Silurian and Devonian rocks, and Mississippian, the Carboniferous rocks exposed at the surface down to Cambrian rocks. These have a wealth of mineral deposits and also oil and gas. Halite, salt, and gypsum were mined from the Silurian Salina Formation. And they still produce gas and oil from the Devonian period Antrim Shale. And we saw some of that. So as we were leaving Frankenmuth, much to my surprise, in the farm fields surrounding Frankenmuth, came across a couple of oil wells, some of which were still working. These are pump jacks. So some are electric, some work by natural gas. This one was not working. It was kind of abandoned in the middle of a cornfield. But this one, it's a still photograph. This one was just outside of Frankenmuth. There wasn't a lot of information on the sign. It just had like the permit number. But this one was cranking along, and the arm was swinging up and down, and it was pumping oil, and the oil was going into these barrels back here through a pipe. There was a little gift shop on this property, and the people that own the gift shop said that they get a royalty from the oil that comes up, and the company comes about once every 2 or 3 weeks with a big tanker truck, and they drain the oil out of those drums. So the Michigan Basin is still producing some oil and gas, not a lot. So what took place a billion years ago? A billion years ago, the North American continent was undergoing a rifting. The North American craton back in the Precambrian was in danger of being split apart, much like after Pangea, much like the way South America separated from Africa. Well, back during the Precambrian, there was a major continental rift that developed. We think it also extends now under Lake Erie and into Ohio, but this red striped line shows the mapped extent, either exposed on the surface or buried at depth by other overlying sedimentary rocks. The mid-continent rift is a 2,000-mile long, 2,000-kilometer long, failed continental rift. The North American continent was beginning to rift apart and split. And at the same time that this rift was occurring, the Grenville orogeny was taking place further to the east. And as Rodinia was assembling and coming into us, as the other terrains were coming into us, this rifting overlapped. And what we believe happened is the collision that formed Rodinia may have stopped the mid-continent rift, but this was a very, very active rift system like we see in East Africa today. As this rift opened up, especially in northern Michigan and coming down through Wisconsin and Minnesota, enormous volumes of basaltic lava flows filled it. And there was lava flow after lava flow after lava flow. These lavas accumulated anywhere from 4 to 7 miles in thickness. So these were enormous volcanic eruptions that filled this rift. This would have been a very, very geologically active rift. The rift failed. It stopped rifting. In part, we think, because of the assembly of Rodinia. So the two overlap each other. As these basaltic lava flows spilled out, there was also erosion from the east and west side of the rift. So not only was the rift being filled with basaltic lava flows, it was also being filled with sedimentary rock that filled in from the east and the west. There were conglomerates and sandstones and shales interbedded with the lava flows. And then the period of mineralization would come later. So here's kind of a little timeline of what happened. The Grenville orogeny that culminated in Rodinia, the Grenville orogeny from about 1.2 billion years ago to 1 billion years ago, the Grenville orogeny took place in 3 stages: the Shawinigan, the Ottawan, and the Rigolette. At the same time that the Grenville orogeny was taking place, this mid-continent rift was opening up at about 1.1 billion years ago, an extensive rift system with a lot of volcanism, and then it began to subside and close up. So we have these two events occurring at the same time. The Cambrian Precambrian boundary, about 551, 542 million years ago, is right about here. I don't want to get into the snowball Earth, but those of you that are familiar with geologic time, there was a time period on Earth from 600 to 700 million years ago where just about the entire Earth was frozen over under ice and extremely cold climate, and we call that the snowball Earth event. So what happened during this rift? So here's just another diagram. The mid-continent rift began to form about 1.1 billion years ago during the Precambrian, what we call the Mesoproterozoic era. The active rifting coincided with the Grenville orogeny. When the rifting stopped and the flow of basaltic magma stopped filling the rift, we still don't understand how this happened, but there was a period of hydrothermal activity and mineralization in the basaltic lava flows. So the mineralization in the Keweenaw Peninsula of the lava flows took place about 1 billion years ago, 1.04 billion years ago. But the rifting continued till about 1.1 billion years ago. So when the rifting stopped, we had this period of mineralization. So we can kind of show that a billion years ago, the continent's being torn apart. The rift is a site of active volcanoes. We get these extensive basaltic lava flows with a whole suite of different igneous rocks mixed in there too. During the Ice Age, the glaciers come down, they scour out some of the softer sediment that accumulated on top. And then eventually, what do we have today? We have the Great Lakes occupying the lower topographic features, especially Lake Superior, sits on top of these basaltic lava flows. The majority of the basaltic lava flows are buried very deep under Lake Superior, but they're shaped like a bowl and they outcrop on the Thunder Bay side in Isle Royale. And then here in Michigan, they outcrop along the Keweenaw Peninsula. So to get to these basaltic lava flows, you have to cross the mighty Mackinac Bridge. So these are my own photographs. So I was driving, Marilyn was taking the pictures. In terms of suspension bridges, this is one of at one time it was the longest suspension bridge between the towers and anchoring piers. So this is the trip over. It's a fairly narrow bridge. It's extremely high. It's very windy. I was just looking before, there was a wind warning up on the Mackinac Bridge. When you get to the center of the bridge between the two towers, you do not have a solid concrete bridge deck. It is a metal grate. And the reason they have a metal grate is because you get such extreme winds in the Straits of Mackinac that the wind would lift up the bridge deck. So they had to put metal grates on that allows the wind to pass through the bridge without torquing the bridge too much. So the day that we went over, they were doing construction. The guide rail's only about 3 feet high. So if you drive in the outside lane, it's quite a thrill. This is the view from the St. Ignace Upper Peninsula side. So there's the Mackinac Bridge. So I just wanted to show you a few facts here. This will be recorded. Don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but here's, this is looking over from the southern to the northern part of the Mackinac Bridge. The total length of the bridge is 5 miles. So part of it's a causeway and then between the two towers and the suspension part, but the total length of the bridge is 5 miles. The height, when you're in the center of the bridge, the height above the Mackinac Strait is about 200 feet. So you have a 200-foot drop down to the water. This fact sheet even has a number of rivets and steel bolts that were used. I'm not going to go through all of these, but it's kind of interesting. It tells you the engineering feat that it took to build this bridge. So our ultimate goal was after crossing the Mackinac Bridge and stopping at St. Ignace and some of the other towns here was to traverse the Upper Peninsula. We spent a night in Munising beautiful little coastal town, and did some collecting for Lake Superior agates along the Pictured Rocks National Seashore. Actually, I didn't collect rocks at the National Seashore. We went outside the boundary and collected Lake Superior agates and some other nice stones at Grand Marais, the little town of Grand Marais. Marquette and Ishpeming are in the Marquette Banded Iron Formation range, and some famous exposures here. And then we continued up to Houghton and Hancock, and our final destination was Copper Harbor on the very tip of the peninsula. So not only is Michigan famous for copper, but it's also famous for iron production and from the banded iron formations. So we passed through these. I didn't spend too much time exploring the banded iron formations, but the banded iron formations are confined to this band of rock right here in the western part of the peninsula. The black line shows our route, our driving route up to Copper Harbor. Marquette, the Marquette Iron Range, and the town of Ishpeming. Marquette and Ishpeming are two famous banded iron, open pit and deep banded iron and formation, hematite and magnetite mining areas. The majority, the largest banded iron formations are in Minnesota in the Mesabi Range. And I'm not quite sure how old this graphic is, but there are still some active iron mining taking place in the Mesabi Range. We have, here's the Keweenaw Peninsula. We have the Marquette Range and the Iron River Crystal Falls Range, the Gobic Range. There's a lot of open pit mines here that you drive past on the roads. There's old copper mines exposed. Unfortunately, this was on a Sunday, and in the town of Ishpeming, this is the famous Cliffs Shaft Mine. That is now, this is the original, this is the tipple. That's where the mine shaft went down to the lower level. The old mine buildings are now a museum. We passed through here on Sunday. Unfortunately, it was closed, but I got out and looked around, and they had all these mine cars, and there was a huge open pit there. There's banded iron formations stacked everywhere. It took everything I had not to try to lift this piece up and put it in the back of the car. So there's just an absolutely spectacular piece of Precambrian banded iron formations. This is red jasper and chalcedony that's intermixed and layered with hematite and magnetite. And I had my magnet with me, and the magnet sticks to this very, very readily. And I have some pieces here that I did collect at other locations that I'll show you. So these were large chunks of banded iron formation that were in Ishpeming. At one time, this was the world's largest producer of iron. And here's a close-up of that banded iron formation. This formed during the Great Oxygenation Event that took place on the Earth during the Precambrian. So we have this red jasper and chalcedony and hematite, magnetite. Here's a piece that I collected from that area. Not quite as brilliant and spectacular. That's about a 15-pound piece. This is red jasper. A magnet sticks to this very readily, and this is hematite and magnetite. So our ultimate goal, where I wanted to get to, was the UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So the main highway is Highway 41 that runs the entire length of the peninsula. This is not very big. You can see the scale up here, 10 miles. So when you get to Houghton, which is where Michigan Tech University is, and they have a spectacular mineral museum, when you get to Houghton, it's not a long drive to get all the way up to Copper Harbor and Eagle Harbor, all along this main highway. Highway 41, you go through Calumet and Traver and Phoenix and Mohawk, all along this main highway to the left and to the right are nothing but abandoned copper mines. The rock layers that make up the Keweenaw are shown here on this cross section. So the Keweenaw Peninsula itself is the eastern limb of a syncline. The syncline makes up the floor, the deep floor of the western part of Lake Superior. And then we go across western Lake Superior and we come to Isle Royal, which is not shown in this MapQuest photo. But the basaltic lava flows are stacked up one on top of each other that formed in the rift, and they're bent down into a deep syncline. Those lava flows outcrop all along the Keweenaw Peninsula here, and they're dipping very steeply. They dip anywhere up to from 35 to 55 degrees. So if we look at a geologic map of the Keweenaw Peninsula, these banded lava flows extend in lines from northeast to southwest. And then here's another geologic cross-section. So we have the western part of Lake Superior. Here's Lake Superior. Here's the Keweenaw Peninsula. The lava flows known as the Keweenaw supergroup are bent downward into a syncline. Keweenaw Bay is here. So we have Keweenaw Bay. And then we come back into the Marquette, right here, the Marquette Iron Range, which was over here. So that's a nice cross-section. The most productive copper-bearing unit on the peninsula is the one that's shown in this orange right here. It's only a few miles wide, and it extends from the very tip of the peninsula all the way down past Houghton. This is the Portage Lake Canal. Those are the Portage Lake volcanics. There are other copper-bearing basalts above and below this, and conglomerates, and some other sedimentary rocks that contain fragments of copper, but this Portage Lake volcanics was the target rock for a lot of the open pit and deep mines. So once again, here's a general cross-section across the Keweenaw. Below Lake Superior, we have this huge synclinal basin. This was the rift, the mid-continent rift that filled with lava flow after lava flow. The stratigraphic section, we have miles of volcanic rocks. The South Trap Range, the Bessemer Formation. Here are the Portage Lake volcanics right about in the middle. And that was the target zone for most of the mining. The Copper Harbor conglomerate also contains smaller volcanic lava flows that are also copper bearing. So once again, this drive, the peninsula is actually split in half by the Portage Canal and river. This body of water existed, but then a canal was dug to connect western and eastern Lake Superior. The city of Houghton and Hancock sit right on the canal. And as you drive up Route 41, you see nothing but abandoned copper mines. And of all the copper mines that are on the Keweenaw, this is probably one of the most famous ones. It wasn't the largest producer, but it was one of the most successful copper mines. This is the Quincy mine in Hancock. Hancock, Houghton are kind of like joined cities. Here's the canal. So we're looking south. This sits on a large hill overlooking Hancock and Houghton. This is the Houghton-Hancock lift bridge, and this is the canal. The Quincy mine was called Old Reliable. It's one of the few remaining large, deep copper mines that has been preserved. It's now a National Historical Site. You're not allowed to collect any rocks or minerals on the site. This is the shaft house. This is where the miners would descend down into the copper-bearing units, thousands of people on the surface. This is the hoist house. So the hoist house has the steam-powered hoist, and the cables would run across this tower and connect to the mine cars. They have a trolley that part of your admission, you take a trolley ride and you go down. It's actually a cog railway. You go down a very steep hill down to the river level, and they've Michigan Tech students have cut a tunnel into the side of the hill, and you walk into the mine a couple of 100 feet below the surface. So once again, here's the Keweenaw Peninsula. This was a map that was at the mine. It was really difficult to get the whole thing in a large view, but here's Houghton, and the Quincy mine is right here. And this is the dark brown, the shaded area here. Here's it enlarged. So this part of the map right here is enlarged here. So here's the canal, Portage Lake and Canal, and here's the Quincy mine in Houghton and Hancock. Calumet, we stayed a night in Calumet. Calumet was also a big copper mining area. And these are the Portage Lake volcanics, that band of lava that extends up through the Keweenaw. So the Quincy Copper Mine operated from 1846 to 1945. It has an inclined shaft. The miners descend into the mine along an inclined shaft. The shaft went down almost 10,000 feet. Imagine that. You climb in the mine car and you descend at about a 55-degree angle. You follow the bending of the rock and you go down 9,000 feet below the surface. So it's not, well, it's a 9,000-foot shaft, but in reality, you're 6,000 feet below the surface. The tour at the Quincy is quite spectacular. They take you inside all the operating buildings. This is the cable that held the mine cars, brought them up and down the shaft, and then they take you underground through an adit. Inside the shaft house is a famous structure that was built just for the Keweenaw mine, just for the Quincy mine. This is what's known as a Lindberg steam hoist. It is a steam-powered cable hoist that brought the mine cars up and down from below the surface. It could handle, I believe, 10 tons of ore at one time. The thing that made the Lindberg steam hoist so unique was it was one cable, something like 20,000 feet in length. The cable was wound around this huge drum and it fit in these grooves. And the operator, the hoist operator, those are his spiral stairs, and he would sit up here and he would control the hand levers, and they would use bell signals, and the miners would ring a bell that would ring up on his control seat, and he would raise and lower the ore cars and the miners, what they call a man trip, up and down the shaft. The cable wrapped around this drum once. One cable would go down, one cable would go up. So they had two shafts. They were counterbalanced. It was powered by steam. They burned coal and produced steam, and these huge wheels were turned by the steam in the boilers, and that's what allowed them to raise and lower ore out of the mine. You take the cable, you take the tram car trip down the hill, and you enter the adit. An adit is a horizontal entrance into a mine. This tunnel was here, but the students and the geologists at Michigan Tech blasted it and made it wider so tourists could enter the mine. So they take you back about 2,200 feet, and they show you all the old mining methods. They have mine cars. This is an 800-pound solid nugget of pure copper, a copper ingot that was busted loose from the vesicular, what we call the amygdaloidal basalt. And they left this in the mine. When the mine shut down, there was a lot of copper that was simply not brought out. There are still mine cars on the track that have a lot of rich copper in the basalts. And that's what makes the Keweenaw so unique. The copper is not in the form of copper sulfides or copper carbonates like malachite, azurite, chalcopyrite. The copper is pure native copper. You get enormous masses of pure copper with some other elements and minerals mixed in, silver, some nickel, but for the most part, this is pure copper that is found in what we call an amygdaloidal basalts. Now, a typical amygdaloidal means little openings, gas vesicles in the rock. You can get a basalt. Here's a sample that I picked up at the mine, but I didn't take it. I just photographed it. Here's an amygdaloidal basalt. This is the Portage Lake volcanic series. The amygdals are filled in with quartz, epidote, prehnite, chrysocolla, azurite. The green minerals in there are chrysocolla, copper carbonates, copper silicates. There's cuprite. Here's another typical amygdaloidal basalt from the Portage Lake series. A lot of these amygdals are filled with quartz, feldspar. There's some native copper in there, but at some of the horizons in the Portage Lake series, you get enormous amygdals. Some of the amygdals were the size of rooms. and you get copper, pure copper, that's the size of cars. These masses of copper weighed 20, 30, 40 tons. A typical amygdaloidal basalt from the Portage Lake series looks like this. Now, these are from a place several miles north from the Quincy mine. This is the Cliff mine. The mine is now defunct, and some of the old buildings are still up in the hills, but you can walk the old mine tailings and search for copper, which we found a lot of. I brought a lot of samples home. I've been cutting them and polishing them. So this is the interior of a piece of amygdaloidal basalt that dates back 1 billion years from the Keweenaw. That's a Portage Lake series basalt. The amygdals are filled with zeolite minerals, chrysocolla, feldspars, azurite, cuprite, chlorite, calcite. And then you can also find this. Here is a large chunk of amygdaloidal basalt, and this is all made of copper right there. That is pure copper just sticking up out of the rock. This rock was busted out of the mine. This is a fairly heavy piece, probably weighs about 8, 9, 10, maybe 15 pounds. And there's just pure copper strung the whole way through it. Some of the amygdaloidal basalts in the Portage Lake series are absolutely spectacular when they're cut open. So this is from a little further north up by the Cliff Mine and Copper Harbor. This is an amygdaloidal basalt that's been mineralized. I cut this on my saw. I have not polished it yet. I actually have a few pieces here on the desk. The green is epidote. So we have the epidote mineral, and then we have quartz. The red is cuprite and red jasper. And you can see there's the native copper. So the copper is disseminated through this amygdaloidal basalt. And here's a typical piece that you find. So I actually brought this piece home with me. I'm in the process of slicing it open right now. You go underground at the Quincy mine. So they take you underground for about 1.5 hours. You walk in the attic and you can actually see the basaltic lava flows stacked up on top of each other, dipping at about 55 degrees towards Lake Superior and under the lake. So this was one of the exposures in the mine adit. What you're looking at, this is a lower lava flow right here. This is the base. The lava flows are dipping. They're dipping to the left as you look at the screen at about 55 degrees. This is the bottom of the one lava flow, and this is the vesicular or amygdaloidal top of that lava flow. You can see it looks a little rougher here. So this would have been the upper surface right there of this lava flow. Then after this flow, another flow came out and covered it. So this is the bottom, the contact with the second flow. This lava flow is about 25 or 30 feet thick, and the amygdaloidal zone is always at the top. So here's just a view from a little further back, and I've drawn the contact in there. So this is the older flow with the new flow on top of it. This was repeated hundreds of times in the Keweenaw. So at one time, the Keweenaw Peninsula, it was the largest producer of copper in the world. And figures kind of vary a little bit. A lot of mine owners were reluctant to release exactly how much copper they were producing, but our estimates are somewhere that the mines of just the Keweenaw region alone, this narrow little band of Portage Lake volcanics along that's shown here in red, the Copper Harbor conglomerate and the Portage Lake conglomerates produced over 14 billion pounds of copper since the 1940s. These are some vintage photographs taken in one of the mines. That is a huge chunk of copper hanging down from the ceiling of the mine. That is solid copper that still extends up into the vesicular, the amygdaloidal basalts. So the mineralization in the Keweenaw is truly unique. It's unlike anything that we see elsewhere in the world where you find this pure copper. So I put a couple of vintage photographs in here. Here's what it's like to go down back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So here are the miners in their inclined shaft. This would be the shaft house. And they're the hoist operators getting ready to release the cable. And these guys will plunge down to whatever level in the mine they're working at. There are a lot of mines in the Keweenaw that you can tour. We did not stop at this one. This is an older photograph. A little bit further north, going up towards Copper Harbor, is the Delaware mine, which is open for tourists. You can tour the Delaware mine and see the copper mining methods that date back to the 1800s. I stopped at the Cliff Copper Mine, which is on the way up to Eagle Harbor and Copper Harbor. This is what the mine used to look like. It was built against these high cliffs. And the mine produced copper from 1845 to 1878. And the Cliff Mine is right up here. It's north of Houghton. And I brought my metal detector with me, and my wife and I spent an hour or two. You can walk these old tailing piles. They extend for miles, and they're hundreds of feet high. And you can, I used my metal detector, and the metal detector was pinging constantly. And every time it would ping, I'd pick up the rock and throw it in the backpack. Collected a whole bunch of rocks and brought them back here to Johnstown, and I've been slicing them open, and there's what you find. So they left a lot of copper behind. In some instances, a lot of still valuable copper ore was left behind or thrown out with the tailings. So I have been slicing pieces of the amygdaloidal Portage Lake basalt, and this is a dark basalt. There's a lot of green epidote in there, and that is all native copper in those rocks. Here are some other samples. Because I brought all these samples back, I had to go out and I bought myself a polisher. So I bought a high-tech horizontal lap. So I have been slicing samples of copper from different mines that you're allowed to collect at that aren't posted up in the Keweenaw. And I'll polish those or clear coat them. And you can see this is a Portage Lake series amygdaloidal basalt that's been filled in with different minerals. There's quartz and feldspar, and there's the copper mineralization. It's quite heavy. So here's a couple of views of some of the stuff that I brought back and I've been cutting and polishing. You can also find, here's a weathered, oxidized chunk, really, really rough and craggy. This is almost just about all pure copper. Here's an amygdaloidal basalt. And I think this probably is one of my favorites. This one I purchased at a local shop. This is the next unit above the Portage Lake series. This is the Copper Harbor conglomerate. So as the basaltic lava flows were filling the rift, there was also a lot of weathering and erosion, and the basalts were forming conglomerates and breccias, and then those conglomerates and breccias and rhyolites and other rocks and sedimentary rocks and sandstones were then lithified and mineralized with copper. So this is a piece that I purchased. It's about an inch or two thick, has these beautiful clasts in it, and they're kind of hard to see, but that's a little, that's an amygdal right there of copper. Most of these little specks here are specks of copper. This piece doesn't have a lot of copper in it. This is the front that's been polished, and that's what the natural piece looks like on the other side. So Copper Harbor conglomerate was also mined. Probably one of the more unusual rocks that's found in the Keweenaw, and it's found nowhere else on the earth. It was discovered in the Mohawk mine in 1901. Miners found tons of this brassy, silver, bronzish, what they thought was a mineral, but it's really not a mineral because it doesn't have a set chemical composition, but it's named after the mine. This is called Mohawkite. Now, I did not find this. I imagine if you go to the old Mohawk mine, you can probably find it, but this is a piece of Mohawkite that I purchased at a mineral shop up there. This is the rough surface. The pictures don't do it justice. This is a brilliant silver, bronze to kind of pyrite looking mineral with veins of white quartz running through it. Mohawkite contains copper, arsenic, silver, nickel, other exotic metallic elements. It's a very unique mixture, and it's found only in this one mineralized zone at the Mohawk mine. And then I also bought a rough little piece that wasn't cut and polished. So we continued up the Keweenaw Peninsula, a beautiful site on the western coast of the Keweenaw. I know we're kind of running a little bit over time here. I'll try to speed things up, but a beautiful location on the western shore of the Keweenaw is Eagle Harbor. Eagle Harbor is located right on the, it's kind of like right on the boundary, right on the contact between the Portage Lake Volcanics and the Copper Harbor Conglomerate. This is actually the Copper Harbor Conglomerate. And these are some of the basalt flows that are in the Copper Harbor Conglomerate. And you're looking across the western part of Lake Superior here. And the reason I wanted to show you this picture is look at this layer of basalt here. You can see the dip. It's tilted. It's dipping down into Lake Superior. And you can see right here, you can see the dips of these rocks. So that is the structure that the miners found. And Eagle Harbor was a beautiful location. It's right here. We're almost up at Copper Harbor. So at Eagle Harbor, did a little bit of collecting. You can see same picture again, but here are the volcanic flows that are in the Eagle Harbor lavas, and they are dipping down into Lake Superior. Also a big mining area. So just a beautiful region. Eagle Harbor is famous for the Eagle Harbor Lighthouse. A lot of lighthouses all across the Great Lakes, and especially Lake Superior. A lot of basalts exposed on Eagle Harbor. Just off of Eagle Harbor, back in 1991, a group of divers discovered a 19-ton piece of copper laying on the floor of Lake Superior in a couple of feet of water. I'm not quite sure, 30 feet down. So here's the diver, and there's the chunk of copper. So it was a free piece of copper that must have weathered loose or was scraped loose by the glaciers. It was found in 30 feet of water. It was a valuable piece of copper. They decided it needed to be put in a museum. So Michigan Tech funded the recovery of this piece of copper, and they lifted it up. That's quite impressive. I mean, that's a big copper nugget, and that formed in the amygdaloidal basalts. And that was located right here in Great Sand Bay. Here's Eagle Harbor, where the lighthouse was in those last pictures. And you can see here's the Portage Lake Volcanics dipping into Lake Superior, and then the Copper Harbor conglomerates. So all this Precambrian copper-bearing stuff. And they continue to find, as you explore the Keweenaw, they continue to find, when they do construction sites, they continue to find what we call float copper. That is one huge solid piece of copper that was found at a construction site in the Keweenaw. They were clearing the land off to build a shopping center, and bam. These are pieces of copper that have weathered out loose over the last hundreds of millions of years. A lot of them were scraped loose out of the basalt by the glaciers and then smoothed and just left lying on the ground. So there are a lot of people that go up to the Keweenaw with metal detectors, and they walk through the woods, and they still find a lot of float copper. I don't know how you would move a piece that big or that large. And here's the piece that was recovered off Eagle Harbor. So there's the 19-ton piece of copper that's now on display at Michigan Tech in Houghton. So that's 19 tons. Imagine that, 19 tons of pure copper. So the very end of the Keweenaw, you can drive Route 41, you get to Copper Harbor. And if you want to go any further than Copper Harbor, it's dirt roads and four-wheel drive. But the very tip of the Keweenaw, looking out over Lake Superior, Copper Harbor is this beautiful little town. A couple of neat little rock and mineral shops and boating and fantastic little restaurants. This is from the overlook. So the town of Copper Harbor, and we're right there. So we're looking north across Lake Superior. It's called the Copper Harbor Overlook. Just a beautiful, beautiful location. We had just absolutely fantastic weather the whole week we were up there. And Copper Harbor was pretty much the end of our trip. I got a couple of other slides here, just some random stuff, but total copper production. Here's what the Quincy mine looked like in 1922. There's still estimated to be I cut a few little articles out here. There's estimated to be millions of tons of copper still below the ground. The problem is, at the current price of copper, it's not economically feasible to recover it. But here are, these are the main basaltic Portage Lake series lava flows. And these are the pounds of copper that were produced from each series of lava flows. The Quincy mine mined the Pewabic Portage Lake series. So you can see 983,000 pounds of copper. All right. I'm sorry, 983 million pounds of copper. Some vintage photographs. The copper that was mined was smelted and poured into ingots and then shipped all over the world for use. One of the neat things about going up through Michigan, don't know how many of you are aware of this, but there's a highway that begins in southern Florida and goes all the way up to Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Kentucky, into Wisconsin, Illinois. I think it passes through Indiana, and it goes up through Michigan, and it ends at Copper Harbor, and that is Route 41. Route 41, you can travel the 1,990 miles on Route 41 from Florida all the way up to Copper Harbor in Keweenaw. And while we were in Copper Harbor, a woman in the gift shop told us that she had met two tourists that had just finished making this trip. They wanted to travel, and it was this spring. They wanted to travel the whole way from Florida to Keweenaw on Route 41. Do they get snow up there? Oh, you bet they get snow. You drive on Route 41, and here's the snow thermometer. So the Keweenaw, this is right up by the Cliff Mine or the Mohawk Mine, Keweenaw County, and there I am. So I'm 6 foot. Here's right there, that's 5, 10, 15 feet of snow in 1 year. That was their all-time low. They average 20 feet of snow per year. And I guess the record was 3,904 inches of snow. We're up over 30 feet of snow there. So they get a lot of snow on the Keweenaw Peninsula. On the return trip, we came back the same way, came back down across the Upper Peninsula, across the Mackinac Bridge, and we made a side trip at Petoskey. I wanted to find some Petoskey stone and coral. And there were lots of people walking the beaches of we're now on Lake Michigan, so we've left Lake Superior behind, but the southern shore of Lake Michigan, the little town of Petoskey, the beach is just littered with limestone that dates to the Devonian period. And you walk along the beach and pretty much every rock you pick up has fossil coral in it. I did not have to search long, and neither did Marilyn, to find Petoskey stone. This one I purchased at a shop because I wanted a really, really nice big piece. This is typical of what I was finding, and I've started to polish it. This is a hexagonaria coral from the Devonian period. And there's two types of corals that are found there. This is the traditional Petoskey stone, and this is the Charvet stone, a colonial coral, but the little coralites, the individual animal chambers, are much smaller. And this was a piece that I picked up on the beach of Petoskey, and I gave that a little polish so that you could see the coral chambers. Lake Superior agates. Here's the Keweenaw Peninsula. Lake Superior is famous for its Lake Superior agates, and Grand Marais is outside the park boundary. So you go to the southern shore. When you cross the Keweenaw Peninsula, you can really find the agates anywhere in the Upper Peninsula and even Michigan and down into Wisconsin, but the beach is the best place. So you simply lay on the beach and sift through the enormous amounts of gravel. You find rocks of every basalts and granites and gneisses, and a lot of the stuff has come down from Canada. And if you're lucky, you find a Lake Superior agate. And so there's one tiny one, but there's a Lake Superior agate, and here's another one. This has been polished. And just to show you, when we were up in the Keweenaw, this was Calumet. It was a day or two after the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. So this was our hotel. This is almost 11 o'clock at night. So the further north you go during the summertime, the days are longer. So 10:50 p.m. at night, I went outside and the sky was still blue, and didn't get dark until about 11:15, 11:20. So it's kind of neat to be that far north. And of course, you can't make a trip that long and not have a stop on the way home. So when we were ready to leave the Keweenaw and head home, of course, we noticed a little squeaking noise in the front of the car, and it turned out that we had a burned out wheel bearing. So we found a little garage in a side town, and they took care of us, and they did a good job. So we pulled it in, and they replaced a wheel bearing for us, and we made our trip back home. And that's my adventure in the Keweenaw Peninsula. So if you have a question, and if you're still here, and if you have a question and you'd like to mic up, go ahead. I'll take a look at the chats. Is that view from Hawk Mountain in the background? Oh, at Copper Harbor? Yes, I believe that was Hawk Mountain. Yep. What else? Dirtmine, Andrew, Steve. I see the Black River Trick and Rock groups on the north flank. Do they produce oil and gas? Yes, I believe the Trenton. Yes, the Trenton groups. Trenton groups, I believe, also do produce oil and gas. Okay. Mackinac Island. Yeah, we didn't get to Mackinac Island. I'm going to go back up again next summer. So how do I polish the? Let's see. Why did all the copper mines shut down? The cost of copper plummeted. It became too expensive. And what happened was there were cheaper ways to mine the copper, the big open pit mines in the Western states and the copper mines in South America. It's easier to mine copper from the copper sulfides and the copper carbonates in open pit than it is deep mining and bringing that stuff up to the surface. Is extremely expensive. The mines in the Keweenaw had their heyday during World War II. World War II was the peak of their copper mining. And I've seen figures. I was looking at different figures. I've seen figures as high as what did we say, 14 billion pounds. I've seen figures as high as 15, 16, and 17 billion pounds of copper. How do I polish the copper? You really don't polish the copper. Let's see. I don't understand what that question means. We didn't get to Traverse City. So I might go back up there again next summer. I want to get back to Petoskey, and I want to go back to the Keweenaw to see things that I did not see. I'm going to stop the presentation here, stop the screen share. Can you see me now on the full screen? Okay, so here's I realize you're kind of running over. It's 8:25, but here's the Copper Harbor conglomerate piece that I showed you. So I bought this at a mineral shop. All right, so that's the Copper Harbor conglomerate. Kind of hard to show with the glare. So beautiful conglomerate. I don't know if you can see the copper in there reflecting. This piece I bought like this, one of the pieces. So here's a piece that here's that big piece of Petoskey stone. This one I bought. The hotel that we stayed at in Petoskey had a big display in the lobby, and they were selling copper and rock. Everybody has Petoskey stone up there. So I had to buy a big piece of Petoskey stone. I wanted one large enough to show my students. So there's the Petoskey stone that I purchased. And here's the Charbet stone that I found in Petoskey. So there's the little round coral colony, and there's the one that I polished on my high-tech wheel. So there's the interior of the coral. Here's the chunk. Almost every rock you pick up on the beach at Petoskey has coral in it. I don't know. Hopefully you can see that. The lighting here in my den is not real good. You can see the corals in there. I purchased a flat lap just so I could polish the copper. What else? I have a little. I haven't polished a lot of these yet, but here's a piece of banded iron formation that I just cut this afternoon, and I wet it so you could see the banded iron in it. So the red is jasper, chalcedony quartz, and the dark and the silver is that's hematite magnetite. And I don't have a magnet here, but the magnet will stick to it. So that's a piece of banded iron formation that I picked up in Marquette and Ishpeming, and I just cut that. Let's see what else. Here's the Mohawkite. So this one, here's the piece of Mohawkite that I showed you in the presentation. That's the rough side. And here's the polished side of Mohawkite. So that's been polished, and I purchased this at a mineral shop in Copper Harbor. So I've always wanted a really nice big piece of Mohawkite. It wasn't as expensive as I thought it was because I had bought a lot of other stuff, and the woman gave me a break on the price. She had this little tiny mineral shop, and it was just packed with the most amazing things I had ever seen. So that's the Mohawkite, and here's the rough piece that's not cut and polished. It's got to be, the camera doesn't do it justice. It's got a beautiful bronze and silver appearance, and there's veins of white quartz going through that. I don't know how well that shows up on the camera. Here is a piece of the, I'm going to wet this so you can see it better. I just cut this yesterday. Here's a piece of the amygdaloidal basalt with the red cuprite and jasper in it, green epidote, and you can see the copper down at the bottom. So you can see the little amygdals filled with copper. So I will polish this one. The copper does polish. If you use a rough, on the rough grit, instead of polishing, the copper kind of smears because it's real soft. But when I get to the fine, like the 1200 grit, it polishes very nicely. And an alternative to polishing the copper is to do this. Here's a piece of the amygdaloidal Portage Lake basalt. This piece has been cut, but it's not polished. It's coated with a clear epoxy. So it looks polished in there. Look, see the copper that's in there? I mean, this piece weighs about maybe 2 or 3 pounds. It's got a nice distribution of beautiful native copper in there. And here's a larger piece right there. Look at the copper that's in this piece. So here's a slice that's about maybe, I don't know, almost a ½ inch thick, and just beautiful native copper that's been polished out. The copper will polish when you get to a finer grit, and you can see there's still some saw blade marks on there. I'm kind of content to leave some pieces natural like that. What else? Here's a piece picked up off the ground. So here's I've got a white paint spot on it because that'll be like a collection catalog number, but here's a piece of amygdaloidal basalt, and see that lump sticking out right there? That's copper. So that's it's like a botryoidal copper sticking out of the top of it. So there's a mass of copper just sticking out of the top of the rock, and that's how it was found on the ground like that. Let's see, and here's the here are the other little slices. So I showed these in the video presentation. Let me wet this one. This one I had a large chunk of this and I've been cutting it. So I've been cutting about ½ inch slices out of it, and you can see the copper that's distributed through there. So, and it's like there's copper everywhere. You go up to the Keweenaw Peninsula and you cannot pick up a rock and not find some type of copper carbonate, native copper. It was like every place that I took the metal detector out, it was just constantly pinging. And I would just pick up any rock that the metal detector pinged on. I would throw in my backpack, and I brought them home and I'm in the process of cutting them. So here's an amygdaloidal basalt. The amygdals are filled with quartz, feldspar. There's a whole bunch of zeolites, prehnite, analcime. You find copper minerals in there. There's cuprite. This one this one pinged, but where I cut it, I didn't expose the copper yet. So I'm going to take another slice through it. I'll probably slice this. So I'm going to be at Tom Smith's South Mountain Mineral Show on October 29th at South Mountain, and I'll probably bring some of these along with the other things that I'll be setting up. So I've been slicing a lot of native copper. You can only have so much stuff in your collection. So, man, that being said, it's 8:33. I think I'm gonna head back up there again. I want to go back up next summer because there's other things that I didn't get to that I want to see. But thank you very much for being patient with me tonight in my long presentation. My students have never accused me of being a short lecturer. So my students will tell you, and sometimes we get to the last 5 minutes of the class and I'll look out around the class and I'll see everybody going like this. They're all looking at their watches and some of them are starting to go like, so, but thank you all very much. If anybody have any comments and you want to unmic, go ahead and do so. So thank you. And we'll see you in
Yeah. Steve is
Yeah.
Tom.
Hi, Tom.
It's just great to listen to you. Colleen and I were just thrilled.
Thank you.
She wanted to ask you, is there a limit to how much copper you can take out of the state of Michigan?
If there is, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
There might be. There might be. It looks like I have a lot, but I'm going to say I probably have less than. I have a couple of pieces here and this. I probably have less than 40 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's not all pure copper. A lot of it is,
It's all the matrix too.
a lot of it is matrix, and and I'll tell you the thing that I found most fascinating about being up in the Keweenaw is we would stop at a deli, a sandwich shop, to get lunch, like on the side of the road, like a little tiny, like Joe's Luncheonette, and in Eagle Harbor or something like that, or you go into Joe's Luncheonette to get a little sandwich, and you walk in, and on the wall there's 300 mineral samples, and they're all for sale, and everybody sells minerals up there. So I bought a lot of samples too, and I was amazed. There were some shops up there that were selling float copper, that the people go out and find it, in the woods. There were some pieces of float copper that were they were like 200, 300, 400 pounds. And they're propped up outside the shop, like on the street. They have these huge pieces of copper that are leaning up against the walls of the gas stations, and there's a price tag on them. Like if you want to buy a piece of float copper that's the size of a couch cushion, it's like, $1,200, $1,500. I saw pieces of copper that I don't even know how you would get it in the car. It's like everybody up there, everybody has rocks minerals for sale, copper, all the minerals, and there's a lot of really, really cool rock shops up there too. And I know that the Keweenaw has big, they have like a Lake Superior Agate Festival, and there's a lot of really, really big mineral shows up there too. And then of course, Michigan Tech is right there in Houghton. They have a spectacular mineral museum. So, but
here's an idea too,
Yeah.
for you to try it. I haven't tried it yet. I've been fooling with it. For 3 times now, I've heard this. One of the secrets that people are using at some of the big shows is headlight, excuse me, plastic headlight cleaner for a car. You buy the regular. I just purchased a batch for like $8 on Amazon. I'm going to try it to bring out some of the polish and some of my dull types of minerals. See what it is. I don't know how that would work on copper. Probably not. It's too fine a grid, but that's the secret. A lot of people are using at the Denver show. I just saw.
I have that. Yeah, I have some of that. The headlight polish that you buy in like AutoZone or
on the plastic headlights. But
right. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah,
out the luster. That's something to try maybe. So thank you so much.
Interesting. Yeah, you're welcome. So
I'll see you at the swap.
Yes, yeah, we'll talk before that. So, yep, sounds good.
Big pieces of copper, have to tell you about.
What's that?
That's really big pieces. of-
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was just, I was just impressed with, like, no matter where you go up there, every gas station, shop, delicatessen, restaurant, they all have a booth inside. And of course you can buy,
These are though from Adams County.
oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the copper from Adams County is spectacular. It's like all like dendritic and in quartz, and yeah, there's some cool, there's a lot of neat copper that comes out of the old mines in Adams County. I picked up a couple of really nice pieces at the Lebanon show a few years ago.
Yeah.
There was a guy there that just specialized in Pennsylvania minerals. He had some awesome pieces of quartz and copper that were just spectacular. I gave a lot of them away, but I think I still have a big one downstairs. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah, all right. Hey, if there's no more questions, Dirtman, thanks a lot for the presentation. It was awesome.
Thank you,
Mike
sir.
Bear. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, good, good.
Did you see the picture I sent you?
Yes.
I got a nice chunk of fluorite at a yard sale.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hey, I know. Yeah,
I
good
think-
stuff. Oh, wait, here, if those of you that are still here, I'm gonna show, 2 weeks ago in my physical geology class up at Pitt, I did minerals. So I spent a week on minerals. So I was going over the different mineral properties. And when I got to the, we do streak, luster, color, hardness, cleavage, fracture. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Do you know the location on it?
No, she had no idea either.
Yeah.
She thought it was amethyst because it was a purplish color, but it's
Yeah,
cubic
yeah.
crystalline structure.
Yeah, there's a good lesson right there. All that's if it's purple, it's not necessarily amethyst.
Right.
So, well, 2 weeks ago, I was doing minerals in my class, and then I do the special mineral properties like fluorescence, phosphorescence, radioactivity. And I have some samples of uranium I show the students. And I have a radioactive alarm clock, a radium clock that was made back in the 30s and 40s. Bendix and they even did, like in military aircraft, they used radium and mixed it with white paint, and they made radium paint. And they would paint the dials of aircraft, like the altimeters and all the instrumentation in the aircraft, with radium paint, and those dials would glow in the dark. The pilots could read the dials in the aircraft at night without turning the cockpit lights on, especially for night fighters. Well, there were a lot of companies that made alarm clocks and watches and men's wristwatches with radium numbers on the dial. So I have a radium clock, and I show it to my class. So today I had class this morning. So today in class, one of my students said, "Hey, Professor Lindberg, look what I bought at a yard sale over the weekend." He said, "I went to it and was right here in Johnstown. Look what I bought at a yard sale over the weekend." He pulls this out of his backpack. It's like a pocket watch. And I don't know if you can read the dial on it. It says Baltimore Radium Company. The numbers and hands on this little pocket watch are painted with radioactive radium paint. All right, here's my Geiger counter. Watch this. So it's highly radioactive. Now, most of those particles are like alpha and beta radiation because it like whittles out after a couple of inches. But he found a radium, probably from the 1930s. I'm going to look this company up. Baltimore Radium from the 1930s. You can hear that clicking. Yeah. So, and he gave it to me. He said, "Here, would you like to have this and add it to your collection to show other students?" I said, "Yeah, I'll trade you something for it, like a nice trilobite or quartz crystals or something." So we had a deal. So
Steve,
add that to my collection of radioactive minerals and unusual items. from the atomic age. Of course, we're not allowed to do it anymore. We can't make watches. And if you ever read the story of the radium girls, right? The radium girls were the women that worked in the factories all day long around the radium paint, and they all ended up dying horrible deaths from, tongue cancer, mouth cancer, esophageal cancer, intestinal colon cancer from having the radium paint all over, rubbing it in their eyes and
There was a
licking
movie a
brushes.
couple years ago on that, Steve.
Yeah.
There was a movie that came out. There's a teacher from the other side of the state. Well, other side of the state from Pittsburgh, so closer to you guys. He's out in Danville, and he is a musician. His name is Van Wagner.
I think you told me about him. Yeah.
Right. And he does a song. He's got multiple albums, probably 20 albums, but he has a song called The Cost. And you
All
can
right.
look that up on YouTube, and he talks about the Radium Girls in
Yeah.
that song.
It's a sad story. Yeah, it really is. So, but well, I think it's about time to sign off. It's quarter to 9. Thank you, everyone. I think no technical errors tonight. I think everything ran well, and your Dirtman report was awesome. The video was really cool. So, yep, Bill, I'll see you in
November.
November. Yeah, I'm putting that presentation together now. I'm actually going to go to the New Parish Quarry next Wednesday because one of my students wants to do a poster on it for GSA at Reston in the spring. So
Were you able to get the did I send you the maps?
yes, I have the
Okay.
map. I showed him the maps, and that's what he wants to do. One of the professors in the geography department, right under our wing, has he does a lot of drone stuff. So I guess his project for the geography class is he wants to do a drone map of the New Parish Quarry. So I showed him yours, and I said, well, this just gives you some idea of what can be done on the really, really professional level, and putting contour lines in and everything. So
Yeah, well, if the control points are still in the ground, you can paint them up again.
yeah. No, I'm not. I don't know if
Coordinates.
I don't know if they use that. I think the drone he has is it's the white one.
Oh, the Phantom?
I think he has a Phantom. Yeah,
It's
that's
a
what. the
Phantom.
department
Yeah, it's
has.
an older drone tech.
Yes, yeah, I think that's what geography department has, a Phantom. So I think he basically wants to put a map together, like aerial photographs, and then draw the geology in by hand on it or on a computer, like on a CAD. So yeah. So I think we're gonna go down next Wednesday. He wants to see the quarry first to make sure that he can do it. And that he
Well,
wants
if
to
you
get it done.
get a bunch of students to clear out some of those trees on the outcrops and around the edges and stuff.
I think we're going to do that this fall, and I'm going to try to
Yeah,
open up
we-
that other road that goes to the
Yeah.
bottom. That
Yes,
second
that-
road. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's the one you can see. All you got to do is move
Right.
some blocks.
And there you go. There's one of the benefits of doing your drone mapping is I never knew that road was there because it was always overgrown. So it's probably going to be maybe an hour or two of work to get in there with an electric chainsaw and some loppers and
Yeah.
open it
Dirtman,
up.
so we did one on a private quartz crystal site up in New York. And the pixel resolution was 0.3 inches
Oh
per
my goodness.
pixel.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And you
neat.
could literally see the pockets all over the ground
Wow.
surface.
Huh.
Them up. But pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
Neat. So, well, I'm going to sign off and end the meeting. Thank you all for hanging around.
Thanks,
So,
Steve. Great.
Yeah. Bill, will you be
Thank
at
you.
the,
That was interesting.
thank you. Bill, you're going to come to the mineral show at South Mountain?
I'm gonna try.
All right.
I'm gonna be selling at the show this weekend, and the Eastern Federation's annual convention is this weekend, and I guess they're
All right.
gonna elect me president unless somebody stands up and gets more votes than me. But then
Good
it's
luck.
then it's the AFMS in New Orleans after that. So
Wow.
it's busy for me this fall,
Yeah.
busier than ever.
Yeah, and then about an hour before Zoom started tonight, Jerry sent me an email and said that he volunteered to host the field conference of Pennsylvania geologists next fall.
Wow.
So I said, really? Like, you're not doing enough already? Like, you want something else to stay busy? So this year's field conference, I've got to miss. I got too much going on, but what is it, the first, second week in October? They're up at Titusville. So I guess next year, the fall of 2023, what's Jerry's territory? Over by Adams County or right?
That would be York. I mean, York.
York, yeah. So I think
Yeah.
Jerry told me that the Pennsylvania Geological Survey pretty much gave him the go-ahead. He'll coordinate the field conference for next year. Now, the survey does a lot of the work. They set up all the transportation and the meals and do the road log and everything. But Jerry can pick out, like, he knows all the good field trip, the locations to stop at. And
Right.
part of the logistics behind that is we typically have 240 people and 3 coach buses or 2 coach buses. So the field stops that we make, you have to be able to get 200 plus people, plus all the support vehicles from the survey, pickup trucks. They usually hire Flagger Force, the Flagger Force guys that are on the highway whenever there's construction. So the conference, but and I'm sure Jerry's aware of that, field trip locations, you can't stop on the side of the Pennsylvania Turnpike with 3 coach buses and 240 people and get them, you got to have a place to park the buses and get out. And then we usually set up microphones.
If we get organized early on enough and he wants some help from me, I mean, we can take mosaic composites of outcrops and match them to the stratigraphy and 3D models of sites that we can't get into or are too dangerous for 4 buses to pull off the side of the road.
That'd be
and have something for the evening talk.
Because there's always a talk Thursday night and Friday night. Yeah. So I guess the main thing right now is, now that he knows he'll be like the main host. I guess the main thing right now is he's just got to kind of think, what York County, if we do the geology of York County, he'll have to think about the sites that he wants to get in and out of. And then, of course, a meeting headquarters, which can just be like a large hotel or, that has a meeting room big enough to hold all those people. And so, all right, that being said, great seeing everybody.
Night, Hall.
We got to get together again, Mike, so.
Yeah, we do, Steve.
All right.
We need to get together. When are you coming in to see the girls next?
The wedding is next weekend.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, October 1st.
You'll be kind of busy.
October 1st, and it's at your favorite location in southwestern Pennsylvania. You
Where's
always
that,
talk about it.
Ohio Pile.
Bingo. They're Falling Water. So not at the Falling Water house. It's at the barn. They call it the barn. It's still on the Falling Water property, but it's on that road that goes past the Falling Water entrance. It's a big barn and silo, and it's like set up inside as like a wedding venue for parties, and it's absolutely beautiful. So, and then the food and everything's being catered from a place in Uniontown, which is like 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away. So, but Marilyn and I and the girls, we've been doing a lot of trips down to Ohio Pile to get stuff set up. So, yeah. Yeah, busy fall.
Yeah.
All right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I got to get going. All right. Good seeing everybody. Keep digging up there at Herkimer Dirt, man. Yeah, find those big goonies. Bye-bye, everybody.
I'm on it.